Wetlands make up a high percentage of important bird and biodiversity areas, mainly due to their importance for large congregations of water birds. However, these wetlands are often extremely vulnerable. The use of water and over-extraction from natural water systems by people have strongly affected almost all wetlands on Earth. Such human impacts include the construction of dams, which changes the course and ecology of rivers, pollution events, water extraction, and development and tourism activities. More populations of migratory water birds in the African-Eurasian region are tightly constrained by ecological factors in their breeding. Wintering and stopover areas. Many sites are needed along the entire migration routes of these birds to maintain their populations. This complex web of sites form a chain in which each link is essential for maintaining viable and healthy populations of migratory water birds along the entire network. The protection of such a network of critical sites, therefore, requires concerted national and transboundary conservation actions. Identifying key sites and maintaining their ecological functions and services along the entire migration routes provides the basis for successful flyway scale conservation.
So one way by which we can keep track of the health status of these wetlands is by the numbers of birds that visit. So if the numbers are declining, then we know that something is happening to our environment. Also, for a more conservation approach, is that there are species that are declining globally. Many bird species are declining and it's becoming a conservation issue. And many of these bird species fly along the coast of Africa, from Europe, along the coast of West Africa, down to South Africa. So because they make use of these different states and sites as well as countries, it's important to keep track of their numbers. So by keeping track of the numbers, we are trying to keep in check on their conservation status at any point in time. So we want to know whether there are any species that will go extinct in the nearest future, or how are they faring.
Africa is rich in birds, with 2,355 species recorded on the continent. Birds occur everywhere, from the lowest point to the highest mountains. People are passionate about birds. They are generally highly visible, well studied, with huge amounts of information available on their biology and distribution. In turn, this helps us to understand the wealth of other biodiversity. In general, places that are rich in bird species are also rich in other forms of biodiversity. Birds also play an important role as indicators of the health of our environment because of their responsiveness to environmental changes. Within a variety of different ecosystems, birds often perform the function of top-level predators, and if these species start to decline, this highlights wider problems within the food chain, enabling conservationists and government to act. For instance, declines in certain seabird species have alerted conservationists to the fact that there are underlying problems with marine ecosystems, including reductions in fish populations and changes to plankton distributions. Some bird species also provide important ecosystem services in their own right. Vultures are an excellent example of this, performing an essential role of removing disease from the environment by consuming carrion.
Talking about the number of birds that are threatened in Nigeria, most of the threatened ones are the ones that we call endemics. The ones that are endemic to Nigeria, the ones that are only found in Nigeria. For instance, the Badomalimbe, it has a very restricted range because it's found just around the southwestern part of the country. So it means that if the habitat in the southwestern part of the country is destroyed, then it's prone to extinction, because then the habitat is destroyed. You won't find them anywhere else. We have the Anambra waxbill as well. We have the Just Plateau indigo bird, the rock firefinch, which with its brood parasite, the Just Plateau indigo bird. Though a subspecies has also been found around the Cameroon Mountains, Mandara Mountains, but that has not been really established yet. But for now, we still have it as endemic. So if its habitat is destroyed, there's a tendency for it to go into extinction. So these are the ones that are really threatened, that you say, okay, yeah, they can go into extinction. But also, aside that, we have the African grey parrot, which is widespread quite along the forest region of Nigeria, but it's threatened because of the global trade. It's traded as a pet. We have the hooded vulture as well, which because of the various issues around it, the persecution, the poisoning, the trade in it is pushing its population down. And also have other birds that are what we call the range restricted. Also, once those range are affected, there's a tendency for them to be affected as well.
Trends observed from long-term studies of migrants in Europe show that long-distance Afro-Palearctic migratory birds are declining faster than short-distance migrants and residents. To assess this worrying situation, national bird population monitoring schemes have been initiated. Managing and protecting migrating bird populations are particularly challenging because they travel thousands of miles in their seasonal migration. Threats along the Rift Valley Red Sea Flyway include construction of power lines which result in collision. The nature of the threat to soaring birds and their pattern of migration means that their conservation can only be achieved by considering land use beyond the boundaries of protected areas and by involving a number of sectors, namely agriculture, energy, hunting, tourism, and waste management.
Why is it that within the city center it's so much hot? Because of a process that is called urban heat islands. Within our urban centers, we have lots of concrete. So you have lots of heat that is being trapped. And at night, the cities become much warmer than the surrounding rural areas. So if we adopt measures such as planting of trees around our houses, it will help a lot. So on the one hand, we as humans are benefiting because we have a much cooler and healthier environment. And on the other hand, we're creating habitat for wildlife, which will play their own role in the environment.
The Migratory Soaring Birds project, funded by the Global Environment Facility and the United Nations Development Programme, aims to make this flyway soaring bird friendly, ensuring safe passage during migration. The Nigerian Conservation Foundation, the BirdLife partner in Nigeria, is assisting with the restoration of the Hadejia Nguru wetland in northern Nigeria. Through community participation, the Ecosystem Restoration Project seeks to control invasive alien taifa from the wetlands complex, which supports well over 10,000 people in 8 surrounding villages, one of the most important overwintering sites for pelagic migratory waterbirds in West Africa. As a result, bird populations have increased as well as the fish yield from artisanal fisheries, upon which local communities depend for their livelihoods. These tangible benefits in terms of income from sustainable fisheries will hopefully inspire other communities in the region to establish similar schemes. Bird migration is one of the great wonders of the natural world, yet each year, fewer birds of many species return to their breeding grounds because the sites they depend on to rest and refuel while on their long journey for their wintering grounds have been damaged or developed. Birds are well recognized as indicators of wider biodiversity, healthy functioning ecosystems, and ultimately sustainable development. I'm Ayola Kasim, asking you to join us next week for another episode of the program. But you can view this episode or any other episode by visiting our YouTube channel, youtube.com/channelsweb. Click on the playlist menu and then click Earthfile. From all of us here in Lagos, it's bye for now.